Welcome to the next episode of the Next Level Digital Podcast. I have a great guest with me today. Got Griffin Kirsch with me. He is from GK Wealth Management. Griffin, absolute pleasure to have you on the show. How's it going?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Amir. It's going well.
Awesome. Well, real quickly, why don't you walk us through who you are, what you're doing, and where you're located?
Yeah, my name is Griffin. I'm born and raised in Reno, Nevada, right next to Lake Tahoe. I'm in the financial services industry. My firm is a registered investment advisor with the SEC called GK Wealth Management. And what we do is, complex financial planning for high net worth individuals, business owners, families. We help them do everything from portfolio management to retirement planning, tax strategy, estate planning, planning for their kids, wealth transfer, wealth preservation, and much more.
So if you could sum it up, like in terms of percentages, what's the highest percentage of like this segment of your business that produces the most revenue? Is it wealth planning? Is it the tax stuff? Is it estate planning? Which side of your business is your bread and butter?
Yeah, the way we make money is by charging an advisory fee, managing clients' portfolios. And for that, we do all of the planning at no additional cost. So when someone brings over their investment accounts, their retirement accounts, we'll charge an advisory fee with the promise to manage that money for them and also provide planning advice around their financial picture. So
Gotcha.
The question's it doesn't really apply because there are advisory firms out there that will charge separate planning fees, separate, one-off costs for doing work outside of investment advisory work. But we've just kept it simple with our clients to say, if we manage your money, we're going to provide planning on behalf of your financial picture at no additional cost.
I see. So you guys get them in by saying, hey, we'll do the wealth planning, but we're going to do all this other stuff for you additional, because that is part of the holistic picture. Like somebody comes in, they want you to manage their money, but it's not just managing money. No. You got to plan for taxes. You got to plan for estate, all that stuff, right? It's not just a one size fits all.
The way I kind of look at the lens I kind of look through when it comes to working with clients is the portfolio management. It's more commoditized these days. You don't need necessarily professional help to necessarily manage a portfolio. Not to say we don't do very well and add a lot of value, but we think that the real value add is in the planning that we do for our clients and the scope of work that we help our clients with. And the portfolio management side is how we get compensated. We charge an advisory fee for managing their portfolio, but for that, we're managing their portfolio and we're very good at that, but, essentially help them with all the other value add opportunities in their lives, which depending on the client can be pretty robust, especially for business owners or high net worth. There's a lot of variability to that type of planning, and the game of chess that you can play with financial planning, one move has a ripple effect across other areas of their financial picture. And so knowing how to navigate that game is what we're really good at.
And I guess in my eyes, for somebody looking for a service like what you're doing, I would assume that mostly it's higher net worth individuals. Am I correct or am I not correct?
Have a ton of money yet. The planning is quite simple. People need to get out of bad debt. They need to get emergency funds for emergencies, and then they need to start investing in their future, which is in case through their work or Roth IRAs that we can help them with. Brokerage accounts for not necessarily retirement goals, but maybe purchasing a house in a few years. So all of that is really simple when you're a beginner and don't have a ton of wealth. But the complexity shows up when you've got more moving parts and more zeros next to your dollar, next to your account balances, because then there's just a lot more tax strategy.
Right.
There's estate planning needs that come into play. There's risk management. When you've got wealth, a lot of people, are still interested in growing it, but a lot of times they're as interested in protecting that wealth. Whereas someone that's beginning, that's younger, they're not trying to protect wealth, they're trying to grow. And so there's a few layers that are, removed from beginning investors that are very real when you're dealing with clients of a higher net worth.
Right. And tell me this, so you're the owner and founder of your firm, right?
Yes.
When you first started, how did you get your very first client? Where'd you find that person?
I started off at Edward Jones when I got out of school, and the model back in 2014 was to knock on doors. And so I literally wore
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I went into neighborhoods that you'd assume have wealth because they're
Right.
bigger houses, maybe nicer cars parked outside. And I would just knock on doors. And I knocked on probably 5,000 doors and built, I don't know, maybe 15 to $20 million of assets under management through that process. And then from there, then I had shaken hands with, not all the 5,000 doors answered their door, but, 3,000 of the 5,000 doors I shook hands with, and I took notes on the conversation and followed up with them. And then once I had, enough of a starting place, then it was just a matter of like watering those seeds, watering those relationships and pleasing those customers to then have them be excited to share, my information with their family and their friends. And then fast forward, 11 years, we now have about 265 million under management.
That's a good story. I would never have expected you to tell me that you grew the business by knocking on doors. Because usually if somebody's knocking on my door to sell me something, it's like solar, pest control, and now you got Griffin over here knocking. He's like, hey, do you want me to manage your money for you? It's like, wow, that never would have expected that. You're probably the first person to probably knock on their door and be like, let me manage your money for you. So to them, it's like, whoa, like that's, it's like instant icebreaker.
Totally. Yeah. The crazy thing is it works. It wasn't
Right.
fun. I don't miss it, but it was great to kind of go through the process of starting from ground up and like earning every client that I onboarded. I definitely don't want to do that ever again, but it did work.
Well, tell me, at what point were you like, hey, I don't need the door knock anymore, and this is now my client acquisition strategy? At what point did that happen? Like you switched gears?
Yeah. Well, in my business, unlike, a real estate agent, for example, where a real estate agent can sell a home and they get a big check, $15,000, $20,000. When I get a client that's got $1 million, I'm not getting like an upfront commission for that. You're getting basically 1 to 1.5% of that $1 million over the course of a year.
Right.
So it takes, some time for revenue to start showing up. And so once I was at like 15 to 20 million, then I had enough revenue to where I could then, focus on a different strategy, because I wasn't getting really ideal clients at the door. I got some decent clients out of it, but most of them were younger clients that didn't have $1 million to move over. They were just interested in, getting seeking some advice from someone like myself that was happy to give advice. And it was more about building the relationships than building a really big advisory firm out of it. But yeah, I think, it's about a 3-year period of time if an advisor's getting into the industry that they need to focus on getting past to where they're actually starting to make sense of this business and making it actually, pay for their expenses. Because like I said, unlike a sales business that's yielding commissions, we're just yielding a advisory fee that comes in, and it's you're eating top ramen for the first couple.
Oh yeah, for sure. But tell me this though. So what was your acquisition strategy to find the higher net? Like once you got your basic bills covered, you got your overhead covered at least to the baseline, how did you start finding those higher net worth individuals? Were you going to like networking events? Are you just cold calling? Like what were you doing?
Yeah, so at the beginning when I was door knocking, I was also networking every time I could. I was going to dinners, I was going to networking events, I was in networking groups, and just, essentially letting as many people know who I was and what I did. And then, just organically grew into opportunities, introductions, referrals that, I ultimately had to prove myself. Because at the end of the day, I think you could be a great guy, but they don't necessarily care about that, at least when you're younger. They care, are you proficient at managing money and financial planning? And then if you're a likable guy and you marry that with being proficient at your skill set, then it's like a recipe for success. So I just had to, I think I had the likable side. I was pretty good at building relationships, but I had to prove myself as to, being someone who is an astute financial planner. And that just took time. It took a couple years for clients to start to see, the value that I was bringing in terms of forcing discipline on them to save and invest, forcing discipline on them to get out of any bad debt, making good financial habits, and incrementally improving each area of their financial life just 1%. And as you see that compound over the years, then it starts to be very visible. It's not very visible after the first month someone comes on board, but after a couple years, it starts to be pretty obvious that what we're doing is valuable. And then, after we got through all the networking events and networking groups, which I did for probably the first 5 years, then I started to rub shoulders with CPAs and attorneys and high-performing real estate agents that were representing clients coming from California that were moving their house, and a lot of times moving their assets away from their advisor and just getting in front of life change events.
Right.
Which moving is a big one. And my wife's a real estate agent. My sister's a mortgage broker. So they've helped out as well, making introductions along the way. But yeah, the most impactful thing has just been getting really proficient at tax planning. We're not CPAs. We don't give tax advice, but at the end of the day, everything we do has tax decisions as part of, of the approach. And so you have to be smart in the tax world. And a lot of advisors, I think, miss out on that. And so I started to prove myself to the CPAs that I knew how to do the planning that they're doing at a very high level. They started excited to send me some of their clients, which is great because the referrals are much easier way to grow business and move the sales cycle along versus cold prospecting. It's a much longer sales cycle. When someone's referred to you from a customer or CPA that knows I'm good at what I do,
right,
that person coming in the door is typically ready to move forward in almost all cases.
Yeah, I would assume that, my first assumption of thinking of wealth management is that it's a relationship business, like 100%. Your reputation is absolutely everything. And everything you said pretty much lines up with that. But your first start out is what kind of threw me off. I would never expect a door knocking, but everything past that point, the networking, the rubbing shoulders, talking to realtors, lenders, that's exactly what I would have assumed, 100%. Yeah. And so tell me this, you're growing and you are finally getting some clients. At what point did you hire your first employee?
Yeah, I think it was, so when I was at Edward Jones, I had an assistant from the very get-go, but then I left Edward Jones after about 2.5 years. I suppose I left because I kind of outgrew Edward Jones. It's a very vanilla cookie cutter platform. And I was starting to realize I was needing to help clients beyond just cookie cutter advice. And so I left Edward Jones to join a private firm in Denver, in Reno. I was a satellite office here, but worked with a private firm in Denver. Was still a solo practitioner at that point for that whole year. And then in 2017 or 2018, I decided to start my own firm, which took some time. And then my firm, GK Wealth Management, got approved in 2019. Again, still a solo guy, just me, my computer in an office. And then I think about 1.5 years into my firm, we must have gotten to about 30 or 35 or 40 million. I had made 2 transitions, by the way, Edward Jones to the firm in Denver, Denver to starting my firm, which means I was repapering all the clients that had signed up with me at Edward Jones to move, and then clients that moved with me the first time, again, had to sign paperwork. I kind of had to go backwards to get the relationships that I had worked so hard for to follow me.
Right.
And so after the first, 6 or so, maybe 6 to 12 months with my firm, moving everything over, then I could start focusing on growth again. And then shortly after, I hired my associate Clayton, who's still with me today. And he's kind of been my right-hand man, kind of just in the weeds with me, from administrative work to paperwork to financial planning, investment management, client communication. And then we've since, grown more into our own unique roles with the 6 staff, including myself, that I have today.
So now, you have you, Clayton, and four other advisors as well.
Yep, all of them are advisors. They're not all always acting in an advisory capacity. They're basically just making the firm, work efficiently and helping me out. But yes, all 5 people that work for me all have their licenses and are legally allowed to give investment advice and do what I do. But their roles are all kind of like unique in them of themselves to basically allow me to do my job well and still scale and bring on more clients and do all the things that we have to do for our clients.
Would you say that the way you hire, do you say that you do anything differently than anybody else is doing? Like, do you have some kind of secret sauce to hiring or something that you like to do that somebody else doesn't do?
Yeah. Every single person I've hired has been introduced to me or found me. So it's been very organic. And frankly, every single time someone's come to me that I've then hired, I wasn't really looking to hire, even though I probably needed to. But I just had, great people come my way that ended up, decided, they seemed like a good team member. So I've been really lucky. I don't think I have anything unique other than just having a little bit of luck, having the right people come find me and being great people. And 2 of the guys that work for me are younger. I've kind of trained them and brought them up and mentored them. And then the other 3 that work for me are all higher level, past experience, great resume type people. And yeah, the guys that are younger with me that started out, I told them from the very get-go, like I'm a small firm, I was at the time. I don't have like this training program, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, like they have this great training program for young advisors. I told them from like, I don't have that. I went through it myself. I'm happy to help figure out how to train you, but it's going to be, I'm going to kind of freestyle it with you.
Yeah.
You can sit by me and watch how I do what I do and just kind of like organically learn. But they were all, they've all been patient with me, and we've obviously done really well. But I told them if you're going to find success in this world being a financial advisor, you don't want to be on the broker dealer side, because when a customer pays $1, the broker dealers like Morgan Stanley are typically taking 60% of that dollar. It's a big portion of the revenue. Whereas if you sit in my seat, you control all of the margin, and it's hard to leave the broker dealers once you've built a practice. Typically people stay because there's a lot of friction to leave. Moving clients over, repapering all the stuff, it's a pain. So I told these guys up front, I don't have a great training program, but if you're going to be successful, being successful on this side of the fence is where you want to be.
Absolutely. Well, that's cool, man. And I mean, do you have any goals for growing? Like, are you going to get more employees, or like you said, you're just going to let it come naturally and grow as you need, or are you going to force any growth?
I think with this, I just hired someone this month, and I think with this new addition, we probably have, if I had to guess, maybe 3 years of runway without having to make another hire. I run a really highly efficient firm, great margin, and I think if we can dial in everybody's roles, we can get away with about 3 years without having to bring someone else on board. That's my goal. And yeah, today we're at 265 million. My goal for the end of the year, which I think is probably needing to be readjusted, but my goal was to hit 300 million as a minimum, and 325, 350 million on the top end, which I think will be, if the market's friendly to us this year, I think we'll very much get there.
Yeah. What is that like now? 15, 20% growth rate is what you're kind of shooting for?
Yeah. And if the market gives us 8 to 10% of that, that's great. Yeah. So that does half the job for us, and the other half is bringing on more clients.
I see. So part of your growth is the appreciation of the assets you currently have under management. I see. That makes sense.
And that's one of the cool things about this industry is, absent of even bringing on any customers, the market, on average does 8 to 10% a year.
Absolutely.
And without even trying, assuming we're just managing money the right way, we're going to grow 8 to 10% a year without even bringing on more clients.
Yeah, that's actually surprising. I don't know why I didn't think about that before. Yeah, you have like a built-in growth model,
and it's a growth that's above inflation. So my income is growing organically just through the market faster than the cost of living, which is also cool, and obviously compounding over the years. So it's a great business.
What happens on the flip side of it though? Like, let's say when Trump was like, "Hey, I'm tariffing China 100%," and the market was dropping like 20-25% in the next like 3 days. What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, it's just like all hands on deck. Mostly we work with clients that are accumulating wealth. We have clients that are on the distribution side of wealth as well, but a lot of our client base are high earners, 45 to 55-year-olds that are, making great money. And what I've trained my clients to understand is that when you're building wealth and on the accumulation journey, volatility, even though it sucks and it's not fun to see your account balances going down, the reality is that's not money we're touching, because that's money for retirement. And if we're building wealth, I sure like buying assets at lower prices.
Absolutely.
So I train my clients to look at volatility through the lens of, this is an opportunity to buy more great companies like Amazon, Apple, Nvidia, Google, Facebook, Tesla, whatever, at discounted prices. And it's funny because when anything goes on sale, there's a line out the door. The one thing that goes on sale where clients are scared is stocks. There's rarely a line to buy stocks when stocks are on sale. And that's just a psychology game. So we grow out of market declines because we've trained our clients to be very disciplined about investing, number one. Number two, not being emotional and taking money out, because that's always the wrong thing to do. And so, yeah, there's a haircut in terms of our assets under management, which is directly tied to our revenue. So that, next quarter or couple quarters might be lower advisory fees, but that's just part of the game. But I just look at it, especially for like myself, I don't love when my accounts are down 20%. No one does. But it's like, I'm not touching that money, assuming that's my longer term money. Short term money, I'm not taking risk with in the first place. That's, stagnant. There's no volatility with that. But my long-term money, where I want to build wealth, I buy. And the example I always use with clients is, let's pretend the Reno real estate market or the Las Vegas real estate market dropped 50%. There would be
a flood,
a very large amount of buyers.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of pent up demand. It's the same thing for stocks. It's like if stocks drop 30%, 40%, eventually there's a floor, and that floor is what causes the bounces. But I agree with you. It's like, don't freak out. You got a dollar cost average, keep buying over and over and over again, as long as you're not too close to your retirement age or your distribution age. But my mom, I managed her 401k. I mean, she was freaking out when Trump was announcing all that stuff. She's like, "Oh, should I sell? Should I sell?" I'm like, "No, like you need to bump up your numbers. Like we should be buying more. Like don't worry about it. You still have 10 years of retirement. Like don't even." And now look, now we're back. We're higher. Like
Oh yeah.
nothing to freak out about.
April till today, the market's up like 40%, maybe more.
It's crazy.
And that's in like 7 months.
Yeah.
So
It's unbelievable.
clearly was wrong. I mean, during COVID, March of 2020, same example. Freaking out was wrong. Buying was right. Holding at the very least was a great strategy. That's always the case. And so what I always help my clients understand is I look at all wealth in 3 different buckets. Bucket number 1 is money that we need for emergency funds, money that we know we're going to spend. Like if you're saving for a down payment on a house, let's keep that in cash or treasuries or CDs or something safe that doesn't go down if the market goes down. And that dollar amount just depends on the client, but that's what we lean on if we ever need cash at the wrong time when markets are down. Bucket number 2 is like midterm goals, 3 to 7 years. We have a little bit of time on our side, so we're taking a little bit of risk, but still being more conservative than our longer term accounts. And this is, solving the problem for midterm goals, 3 to 7 years typically. And that's the bucket number 1 is cash, treasuries, CDs, no risk type of assets. Bucket number 2 is dividend paying stocks and bonds. Bucket number 3, which is most of people's money, which is their retirement accounts, their long-term investment accounts. That's where we're invested for growth purely. And if that bucket number 3 goes down in April when Trump announces tariffs and we need money, well, we're not going to touch that because we've got bucket number 2 and 1 that are more conservative if we needed to take money out. In the perfect world, we've got these proper allocations to all 3 of these buckets. A lot of different accounts can fit in these buckets. I just look at if someone's got $5 million, regardless of how it's invested, there's 3 buckets. And here's what assets belong in each one. And when bucket number 3 is down, being that it's long term, we know that buying lower is the game to building wealth. Buy low, sell high, or buy low, sell never. Buy low, sell never, borrow against.
I'm not the best example of it. I am practically 100% fully invested in the market. This just one channel, like that's all I do is just one, pretty much a spy. I'm 100% in it. And there have just been times where I'm like, man, I need to pull some money out. The market was down and I don't have a damn choice. In the end, I'm sure I came out much ahead just being 100% invested, but it sucks to sell when it's low for sure.
Yeah. And that's typically what you just want to try to prevent is being forced to sell something when it's down.
Exactly.
I mean, if you can prevent, especially in a dramatic way, like you might have had to sell a little bit, that's okay. But how'd you have to sell everything because you lost your job, you got, some health issue and you need to pay for something, being forced to sell when the S&P is down 20% that month, that's rough. People.
Yeah, that's rough.
Big wealth, $5+ million. That's what we do for our clients is we make sure that there's no market outcome that could derail them. We've got the amount of money that we know we're spending in the next 3 years safe. We've got 3 to 7 years more conservative, and we've got our long-term bucket that if the market's down, we're just not touching, And if we're still making money, let's fund bucket number 3 and be aggressive about funding it and take the emotion out of it.
And that's what I'm trying to get to is I need to be 100% invested, highest risk, most aggressive so I can get to that point where it's like, all right, I have enough now. Now I need to be a little bit more careful and probably be a little bit more strategic. So if it does decline, I'm not taking the full brunt of it. Yeah. So hopefully in a couple more years, I'll be one of your clients. So. Yeah. I want to shift gears real quickly and I want to go back to your business and I want to know is your business and how you're incorporating AI into your business or any kind of AI tool to make your business more efficient. What are you doing?
Yeah, I use ChatGPT and Grok and Perplexity just for search engine and LLM type, helping me respond to emails, a lot of different things that everybody uses ChatGPT for. I have started to use it with portfolio management, helping me look at, a portfolio using AI to kind of, portfolios and provide some flavor in terms of like where opportunities look to be, what sectors look maybe overpriced that are worth trimming. But honestly, and then I have, when I do meetings like this with clients, I have a AI assistant that comes in and will note taker.
Note taker. Yeah. Note taker.
It does. And that'll provide, a nice summary of the meeting and action items and follow-up email, which is cool. So it's saving a little bit of time. But honestly, AI hasn't really augmented my job to where like I could double my client base and AUM and have it, really solved, like in terms of just the operational demand that comes with it. I think it's coming, but there hasn't been something that's really like a game changer yet. All the AI tools that everybody uses are cool. They're making response times quicker and client conversations more buttoned up in terms of our notes in our CRM, doing a lot of things, but it hasn't allowed me to like really scale and have a lot of like the operational side solved yet.
I think part of the reason for that is AI in itself it works well, but it's working well for a lot of businesses that have kind of like a lower intent, not a lower intent, but how do I explain it? It's like a prospect that it doesn't have too much to lose. Like if AI hits them and they tell you to F off and they don't want to talk to you or they're not interested, then you're on to the next one. With your business, it's different. You can't have AI talking to them because if it screws it up, you might lose, a $5 million AUM kind of client. It needs to be very, very personable. Like a lot of the clients we work with, it's quick touch points, try to get them on the phone as quickly as possible, book an appointment. Yeah. If they don't want it, you're on to the next 10, 20 leads that come through your pipeline.
Yeah. And that's just that what you described is not my business.
Exactly.
Very relationship focused. Everybody's financial situation is very unique. There's definitely some similarities in terms of some of the advice that we're giving and what we're investing in for clients, but everybody's got a very unique financial picture, and it doesn't seem like AI is going to solve that problem. It has not solved that problem now, but I think it's realistic to expect that AI could either significantly augment my job in a positive way, which it's going to do for sure. I'm not totally certain it's not going to replace me though. I could see an AI model that knows everything about me, knows how I feel, knows where I make money, knows what risk appetite I have, knows what state I live in and the tax code there, knows my charitable intent, and basically tells me exactly what to do. I could see that happening. And frankly, it probably exists. It's just, it might not be a great go-to-market type of product yet. So I am kind of concerned about that for sure, but I do think that it's highly likely that AI makes my ability to be an advisor for clients better. And I think that's probably the next 5 to 10 years, but 10 years out, I don't know. I think AI could very well take my job. I mean, it's not a 0% chance. That's for sure.
I don't think any industry is safe, especially with actual humanoid like robots coming out, pair that with like intelligence. Pretty much every job is on.
Anybody that does tasks, those are for sure going to be replaced. But yeah, I think something where there's a lot of variability in terms of like what I'm doing for clients, that's much more comprehensive than like tasks. And I think it's going to take a while for the emotional aspect of what I do for clients to be, understood through like an AI model. But like I said, I think it's probably coming.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking to you, man. And you're the first wealth management person that we've talked to, and we talked to a lot of recruiters, a couple of corporate people, but mostly recruiters. So talking to somebody in wealth management has been pretty interesting. So like I said, I graduated in finance. I love finance. That was my first corporate job, was doing all that kind of stuff. I love stocks. I love investing. I love helping people. I'm not certified, but I like talking about it. And
well, fun, man. Yeah, there's always more to learn, which my job is never boring. It's definitely not a job that is mailbox money. It's recurring revenue model, which is cool. But man, you definitely have to show up because, at scale, there's just a lot of clients that have a lot of things going on financially, but it's always interesting. It's always fun.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking to you once again, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Amir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for everybody for watching, and tune in for next episode.